Thanks everyone for coming. I was reading the Haftarah today and it inspired me to want to share some Torah. So just what's been going on through my mind and where I'm holding to be able to share my thoughts as we approach the Chag of Geula. We're in the Zman of Geula, in the Chodesh of Geula, in the month of Geula, of redemption, of Nisan, and we're approaching Pesach. So a quick idea on the name Pesach is it's made up of two words, Sach.
The mouth that speaks.
We use our mouth to converse. And at this time, we have to remember what Chazal tell us. At a time of war, we have to remember what Chazal tell us, that about Yaakov being a Ishtam Yoshev Ohalim, right? He was different from his brother Esav, who was a man of war. And his tool, his weapon, was his mouth. Right? When Yitzchak says, Hakol kol Yaakov vayadayim yedei Esav, the voice is the voice of Yaakov and the hands are the hands of Esav. They also, Chazal tell us that is our way of doing war, is with our mouth. And the one way we do war with our mouth is through tefillah. And there's another way that we can do war with our mouth, and that is through conversations. Having the right conversations at the right time with the right people. And now is a time, this Pesach is a time to have conversations. Have conversations about this very important topic of unseating the ANC. And what we can do about that. Okay. Point one. So in the Haftarah I was reading, and I saw the famous verse that speaks about tzedakah. V'chanuni na bezois. Test me. Hashem says, why do you rob me? Why do you rob me? And Bnei Yisrael say, well, for what do we rob you? And Hashem says two things: the tithes and the priestly gifts. Bnei Yisrael deny it, but Hashem says, the tithes and the priestly gifts you rob me of. And then he says further, he says, bring them. Bring all the tithes to the Beis Hashem, to the house of God. And you can even test me. V'chanuni na bezois. Test me, im lo yeftach lachem es harubas hashamayim v'rikosi lachem bracha ad bli dai. Test me now, thereby says Hashem, Master of Legions, if I will not open for you the windows of heaven and pour down for you blessing beyond your capacity. And this pasuk is brought down in Shulchan Aruch. It's a machlokas, whether or not this verse applies to Ma'aser Ksafim, which is charity. Okay? It's important to point out that the verse itself is spoken about tithes, which is separating your truma and your Ma'aser. And Hashem says, test me. Right? Separate your truma and Ma'aser. Separate your tenth of your crop and give it to me, or give it to the Kohen. And you'll have abundant blessing. And it's brought down in the Code of Jewish Law, in the Shulchan Aruch, that does this apply to charity as well? And there's two opinions. The one opinion is that yes, it does apply to charity. You can test Hashem when it comes to charity. But there's another opinion that says that it doesn't apply to money. And it's a specific promise. There's no guarantee that if you give charity, you will get rich. Okay? It's often quoted as such that it is a guarantee. There is obviously the other opinion. You should give charity. You should give charity. the topic of tzedakah is something it's been quite an interesting journey for me, tzedakah. I've always been, I'll be honest, for the last 10 years I've been very strict with tzedakah, like giving 10% of my salary. Like that's the first thing that comes off.
Is 10% the minimum?
Yeah, 10% or as a minimum, yeah. And then between 10 and 20% is what you're supposed to give, right? 20% as a maximum. And I've always been strict on that, but it actually put pressure on my budget. Right, it really put pressure on my budget, and I've always tried to do it, but it reached the point where I actually couldn't. You know, I had to prioritize certain things. They say charity begins at home. And Gali and I together, we spoke this out. We were discussing budgeting together. And, you know, we said, well, tzedakah's going to have to wait until we can sort out our finances and just stabilize that in a way. And we were, thank God, it's been an interesting process of not giving tzedakah. It's been hard, but I've obviously given if people have asked, but I haven't like carved away that 10% at the beginning of every month. So why do I mention this? Because when we were discussing this with someone, he gave us perspective which was quite incredible, and he said that he views charity as much more abstract, in a sense that it's not only on your money but also on your time. I don't know if abstract is the right word, but it's about how you live your life, right? How you live your life. And, you know, if you're doing things with your time, that you're there for other people, or you're giving of your time, you are giving tzedakah as well. You're giving charity. And, you know, hearing that perspective was a chiddush to me. It was novel. It may be obvious to most people, but it changed a lot of how I saw tzedakah, in terms of the fact that time is money. We've heard that saying, but money is also time, because money can buy us time. When you have money, then you can have time or free time to spend it the way you want. When you don't have money, you have to spend your time trying to earn money. So on the one hand, time is money, but money is also time. The Chavetz Chaim put it like that. He said the world says that time is money, but money is actually time. But either way you look at it, there is an equivalence. A person's value is often measured per hour. Right? A wage is worked down to an hourly rate. Time is definitely money, and money is definitely time. There's definitely an equivalence that exists. And therefore it should be obvious, this principle, that in as much as we can give tzedakah 10 or 20% on our money, we could alternatively give 10 or 20% of our time and not on our money. Or perhaps a hybrid, a mix between the two, where we try and get 20% tzedakah through giving money where we can, and giving time where we can to specific causes. Well, it would have to be tzedakah. So, and well, chesed. But what is chesed and what is tzedakah? I think that the principle is that spend your time not on yourself. If you can spend some time beyond yourself, right, not on yourself, that is also can supplement or make up your 10 or 20% of charity. How are you spending your time? And I think that this is a very important principle that we need to, we can think about, we can take to heart, in a time when what we need now more than ever is activism. We need people involved, giving of their time to try and bring about change. Right? We often think, well, I'm just carrying on with my life, give my tzedakah, tick the checkbox, and then I'm good to go. Right? I've done my bit. I can carry on. So that is one way to live. If you're giving your 20% tzedakah, great. But another way to reach that 20%, please God, which is an ideal, the bracha of the Chanuni Nabazoy is to get absolutely wealthy is 20%. 10% is that you'll, please God, have everything that you need. But 20% is when Hashem really opens up the heavens, that you have so much abundance in your life. So with that 20% can be made up of both money or time. That's the one thing that I wanted to share.